I make this exact video at the start of every month, and I really enjoy doing it. There's something kind of masochistic in seeing what books I tell myself I'm going to read in a month and then seeing if I actually stick to it, and when I don't, inevitably, how bad am I going to feel? How awkward am I going to feel about it? For example, in January I told myself I'd read a stack of 5 Scottish books, which I didn't do. I actually read 2 of those 5. One was Poor Things, one of the greatest novels I've ever read. Watch my video about that. And the other was The Pharmacist, a very mid science fiction thriller thing. I feel bad about that. And this month it's even weirder because this is a stack of 12 books that I'm hoping to read in February. Half the stack are really exciting review copies that I cannot wait to get to. And the other half is basically a pile of science fiction because, as I keep saying, I'm in a real sci-fi mood right now. So think of this as 2 separate stacks of very exciting books that should make February a really great month if I stick to it. Let's find out. I'm also thrilled that as we exit January, things are getting a little warmer here in Scotland. The sun is setting a little bit later and rising a little bit earlier. It is really helping my mental health. I'm so glad I moved up here, but it is cold, it is dark, but that's the trade-off for living in a great place, I guess. That said, looking after your mental health is very important. I take it really seriously. I have done a lot to help my own mental health. And one of those things was to get myself a BetterHelp therapist, which is why I'm very happy that this video is in paid partnership with BetterHelp. I have been getting weekly 45-minute long therapy sessions with BetterHelp for several months now, and the results have been amazing. Through these therapy sessions, I've been given the tools to better understand myself, my personal history, my childhood, my relationship to myself, how I view myself, the internal voices that we all build up, that we gather as we grow up, the voices of our parents and our teachers and our friends and our bosses and anyone who has an influence on your life. I've gotten to know those people and my internal versions of them and my relationship to all of that. It's incredible what my therapist and I have come to reveal about me and my relationship to me. It is uplifting, it is empowering, and I feel equipped to deal with it all and just understand myself better. If you think that you would benefit from therapy, as I certainly have, you can go to betterhelp.com/WillowTalksBooks. The link is in the description, and you'll get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp therapy. With BetterHelp, you can choose to have your therapy in a few different ways, either as a video call, a phone call, or a series of messages. I enjoy talking to people face to face, which is why I chose a video call. When you sign up, the very first thing you do is fill out a really detailed questionnaire about yourself, and this helps BetterHelp pair you up with a therapist who best suits your personal needs. You are usually paired up with your therapist within 48 hours of signing up, and that was true for me. Things are going really well, and I'm so glad that I'm using BetterHelp. So if you would like 10% off your first month of therapy with BetterHelp, go to betterhelp.com/WillowTalksBooks. Again, the link is in the description. Now, as I said, everything that I'm hoping to read in February can be neatly divided into 2 separate stacks. The first stack is all of the amazing books coming out in February. I have a bunch of review copies. I'm so happy to have these. I'm so happy I get to do what I do. I love my job. I know that reviewing these books is going to be a pleasure, and you need to have these books on your radar, so let's talk about them now before I've even touched them. I will probably be doing a dedicated video review of every single one of these books, so look forward to all of those, and look forward to the books. This is going to be a really good month, and you're about to see why. A few years ago, a short story collection from Korean author Bora Chung absolutely shook the world of literature. That collection was this, Cursed Bunny, translated into English by my friend Anton He. Cursed Bunny is amazing because it's a collection of short stories that bucks genre conventions. Almost every story in here is a different kind of genre. There is horror in here, speculative fiction, science fiction, fantasy, fairy tales, and in that way it does kind of feel like a folktale collection. Bora Chung has an amazing mind, a wonderful imagination. And what I love about this collection is that people keep discovering it. I see on social media constantly people talking about this book, having just found out about it and having an amazing time with it. Cursed Bunny is a gift. And now we have the follow-up to Cursed Bunny, Your Utopia, also translated by Anton He, and also once again published by my friends Honford Star. I love everything that Honford Star do. I've talked about them an awful lot, and I will continue to sing their praises forever. Honford Star, Anton Her, Bora Chung, amazing new short story collection. I cannot wait to read Your Utopia. This is going to be an amazing time. This will be a highlight of this whole year, and it's coming out so early, in February. This year's off to a really, really good start. I reviewed 3 great books in January, one by Selva Almada, one of my favourite authors of all time, and now in February we're starting off with Your Utopia. This is a good year for books. Keeping that momentum going is this: The Dark Side of Skin by Brazilian author Jefferson Tenorio. This was translated from Portuguese into English by Bruna Dantas Lobato. I have never read this author before, I've never read this translator before, but this is published by my friends Charco Press, an incredible publisher based here in Scotland. I know nothing about this, so I'm actually just going to read the blurb to give you an idea of it, but I keep telling myself to read more Brazilian lit. I know I have a lot of Brazilian viewers who always get excited when I read more Brazilian fiction. One of my favourite books of last year, Of Cattle and Men by Ana Paula Maia, was a Brazilian novel, and so I have high hopes for this. Charco Press, Brazilian fiction, something I've never read before. Let's see what it is. How do you become the protagonist of your own life? For Pedro, it means searching for his murdered father in the objects he left behind, an archaeology of affections. As he retraces the family's trajectory through the streets of Porto Alegre and the morass of Brazil's pervasive racism, violence, and bankrupt institutions, Jefferson Tenorio takes on fathers and sons, Shakespeare and Cervantes, and the inescapable bonds and burdens of family and history in this delicately rendered, painfully precise account of loved ones lost and found. I cannot wait to read and do a video about this. Now here's something coming out in February that is incredibly exciting, original, and important. This is Sinking Bell by Bohan Louis, published by Dead Ink Press, whose t-shirt I wore in my last video. Bohan Louis is a member of the Nakai Dine'e, whom I believe are a Native American Navajo clan. One of my reading goals for 2024 to help decolonize my bookshelf was to read more books by native writers. That includes Maori of New Zealand and Native Americans, etc. So, off to a good start. Once again, I haven't read this yet, so I'm just going to read the blurb. An ex-con hired to fix up a school bus for a couple living off-grid in the desert finds himself in the middle of their tattered relationship. An electrician's plan to take his young nephew on a hike in the mountains as a break from the motel room where they live goes awry thanks to an untrustworthy new co-worker. A night custodian makes the mistake of revealing too much about his work at a medical research facility to a girl who shares his passion for death metal. A relapsing addict struggles to square his desire for a white woman he meets in a writing class with family expectations and traditions. This is a short story collection, and I am incredibly excited to see what kind of peoples and voices I'm going to meet along the way as I read and review this. Easily one of the most anticipated books of 2024 is this, Butter. This is a brand new novel by Japanese author Asuko Yuzuki, and it was translated into English by Polly Barton. This book has been everywhere on social media, and as a lover of Japanese fiction, I knew I had to get my hands on a copy to review. I really can't wait. This comes out at the end of February, and it's going to be amazing, I'm sure of it. It's surprisingly big. Didn't realise how thick it was going to be because that's very unusual for Japanese fiction. Except for that one guy, you know the one. This is a kind of thriller that is a little over 400 pages, and it tells the story of a female gourmet chef who has committed a chain of murders. And all these murders are of businessmen whom she supposedly seduced with her cooking. She's in prison, and she refuses to talk to the press, except for this one woman, a journalist who reaches out to her asking for a recipe. And eventually this turns into a series of visits as the journalist gets to know this killer/gourmet cook. This is easily one of my most anticipated books of the whole year. Like I said with Your Utopia, it's amazing. We get one of this year's most exciting new Korean books and Japanese books in the same month. We really are off to a good start here. And here we have my first Chinese novel of this year, Aftershock by Zhang Ling. Zhang Ling is a Chinese-born author who lives in Canada and has done for a few decades now. She wrote this novel in Chinese and it was translated by Shelley Bryant. I have been very, very lax recently in my reading of new Chinese fiction, so I'm very, very glad to have this. There are so many Chinese authors that I adore, and I'm really, really excited to add Zhang Ling to that list. In the summer of 1976, an an earthquake swallows up the city of Tangshan, China. Among the hundreds of thousands of people scrambling for survival is a mother who makes an agonizing decision that irrevocably changes her life and the lives of her children. In that devastating split second, her 7-year-old daughter, Xiaodeng, is separated from her brother and the mother that she loves and trusts. All Xiaodeng remembers of the fateful morning is betrayal. 30 years later, Xiaodeng is an acclaimed writer living in Canada with a caring husband and daughter. However, her newfound fame and success do little to cover the deep wounds that disrupt her life time and again, and edge her towards a breaking point. Xiaodeng realizes the only path toward healing is to return to Tangshan, find her mother, and get closure. This is going to be powerful and brilliant, I'm sure. And we have one more Japanese book coming out this month as well. This is The Kamogawa Food Detectives. This was written by Japanese author Hisashi Kashiwai and translated into English by Jesse Kirkwood. Once again, I know nothing about this. I was just really happy to be sent it. It has an adorable cover with a cat on it, and here's the blurb. Down a quiet back street in Kyoto exists a very special restaurant. Run by Koichi Kamogawa and her father, Nagare, the Kamogawa Diner serves up deliciously extravagant meals. But that's not the main reason customers stop by. The father-daughter duo are food detectives. Through ingenious investigations, they are able to recreate dishes from a person's treasured memories, dishes that may well hold the keys to unlocking their forgotten past and future happiness. The restaurant of lost recipes provides a link to vanished moments, creating a present full of possibilities. This is going to be fun. Now let's quickly run through all the sci-fi books that I'm excited to read in February. The sci-fi books I read in January, some were good and some really disappointed me, so I'm hoping for a better run this month. And we're starting with I Who Have Never Known Men. This is a short sci-fi novel by Jacqueline Hartman. I haven't read it yet, but people go absolutely nuts over this. Every time I post a picture on social media or mention that I'm excited to read this, people go wild. I get loads of messages. Everyone who has read this has loved it, so I'm very, very excited. It tells the story of 39 women who are trapped underground. They've been imprisoned by someone in a cage of some kind, and that's their life. And then a young girl, a 40th member of this group, is sent down there, and apparently, according to the blurb, she will be the key to their escape. I'm not entirely sure how this is science fiction, but I really can't stress enough how much people love this book, so I hope it's going to be a good one. I really, really do. I have a great feeling about it. I picked it up on a whim based on the hype, and I have a good feeling it'll be great. And here is a big, beautiful hardcover, a brand new novel that just came out in January. This is The Principle of Moments by Esme Gikiemi Pearson. As far as I understand it, this is her debut novel. She is a Black British author of speculative science fiction. She's worked on Doctor Who in some capacity, and I would know more about her if I had gone to an event at Topping & Co in Edinburgh last week, like I told myself I would. I ended up not going to that event for a weird reason, but she was there doing a kind of book launch / Q&A thing. A friend of mine went and had a lot of fun. I didn't go. I wish I had. Blah blah blah. Here we are. Instead, I picked up the book at a local bookshop, and I'm really, really excited to dig in. There are not enough well-known black voices in science fiction, but that is gradually changing. The most famous black voice in all of sci-fi and fantasy is definitely that of N.K. Jemisin. I love her books, and I really want to read more great sci-fi by black women. So this is a start. This is a brand new one that I really can't wait to read. Supposedly, it is a time travel space opera. I don't know much about it, and I kind of want to go in not knowing much. I want my mind blown, so let's see if that happens. This is a book that has been sat at the very, very bottom of my TBR for like a year, and for no good reason, because this is by Aaliyah Whiteley, an author I really, really admire. My friend Callum sent me a copy of her novel The Beauty ages ago, a really, really weird book about mushroom women. I loved it to bits, I thought it was amazing, Callum loved it, that's why he sent it to me, and I had a really great time with it. And then one day I was at a science museum in London with a few friends, and I picked this up in the gift shop. I was excited to read a science fiction novel by Aaliyah Whiteley. She's a really weird author, in the best way possible. And then I put it at the very bottom of my TBR because I just wasn't in a sci-fi mood. Now I finally am, so I'm gonna check this out. I'm not gonna read the blurb to you. because she's so weird. I don't know how much that's going to help anyone, but trust me when I say Aaliyah Whiteley is a really underappreciated author of weird speculative fiction, and I'm sure this is going to be a doozy. John Scalzi is a really, really famous and established author of science fiction, and I've never read him before. His most famous book is The Old Man's War, which I believe is the first book in a big series, and so I've been really tempted to read him for a while. I was in a bookshop and I saw this, a book I didn't know existed. As I've been watching and enjoying a lot of Star Trek recently and becoming really, really obsessed with Voyager, and I used to be a really big Trekkie back in the day, I couldn't not pick up and read this. This is Red Shirts. If you have never watched Star Trek and you don't immediately know what a red shirt is, it's a kind of joke that harkens back to the original series of Star Trek. In that show, the main cast all wore gold or blue outfits for the most part. A gold outfit meant that you were a commanding officer, and a blue one meant that you were a science officer. And the ones in red, the red shirts, usually died on away missions. They were the extras. They usually got shot and killed way too easily, and you never even learn their name. And it became kind of a joke. It's been a joke for decades. And this is a novel that satirizes that and makes fun of it in some exciting ways. It's about the conspiracy of the red shirts, set in its own unique sci-fi universe. This is not a Star Trek novel, as far as I understand it. It is an original piece of epic science fiction that takes the concept of the red shirt joke and turns it into a conspiracy. That's as much as I understand, and I'm really, really excited to check it out. The final sci-fi book that I'm hoping to read in February is Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. I picked this up in a charity shop for like £1. It was in the YA section, although when I did a bit of digging, some people call it YA, some don't. I am kind of concerned that it's called YA by some people because it's sci-fi by a woman, and that, if true, pisses me off. But it happens a lot. If it's a fantasy or a sci-fi book and it's written by a woman instead of a man, it must be less serious and therefore it's YA. Stop that. Anyway, this book has had really, really great reviews by most people. I was tempted to get it when it came out, but again, I wasn't in a sci-fi mood. Now I am, and I found it for £1, and it's in really good condition, so hoping for good things. And finally, a book that I picked up when I was in Brighton at least a year ago, when I visited the Feminist Bookshop in Brighton, one of my favourite bookshops in the UK, and I knew that was the place to buy this book that I've been meaning to read for literally years and years. Abigail Thorne at Philosophy Tube mentions this book a lot. It's not science fiction, by the way, this is just a book I really want to read this month. And it's Caliban and the Witch by Silvia Federici. People go nuts over this as an incredible piece of feminist non-fiction. A history of patriarchy and its relationship to women's bodies. I can't stress how famous and beloved and respected this book is, and yet I have never read it. I spent years telling myself to buy it. Then I bought it. And now I've spent another year at least telling myself to read it. I am going to read it this month, I swear to Lucifer, I'm going to read this. Probably. As I said at the beginning, I do this video every single month and it's usually quite a short one, but I had a lot to go through here and a lot to say, even though I haven't read any of these books yet, so I hope you enjoyed. A stack of exciting new books coming out this month, a stack of sci-fi books I can't wait to read this month, and Caliban and the Witch, which I will read this month, probably. I hope you enjoyed. Support me on Patreon if you'd like to, if you like what I do here and you think I've earned a little bit of your support. I would hugely appreciate it. Let me know what you're reading this month and subscribe for books.